สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ Today I want to talk about acceptance, complete acceptance of the current situation that you're in. No matter how much you may dislike it, no matter how much you may find discomfort in it, or no matter how challenging the situation may be. And what do I mean by that? But before I talk about this, I want to quickly revisit last week's video where we talked about how memory works and why it's not about the past. Again, to recap real quick, Ochsner and Shatner, in their work and research, have shown that memory is an entirely active and constructive process at all stages. So in other words, we always recreate and reconstruct our memory when we think about the past. And furthermore, we do not store any bottled up emotions anywhere in our brain, anywhere in our mind, anywhere in our subconscious mind. Science and neural research, research into neuroscience has shown this. I guess the most important point that perhaps I forgot to stress in last week's video is that the reason why it's not about the past is because, yes, indeed, you may have had a traumatic childhood. Maybe you were abused. Maybe you have experienced a very traumatic breakup in a relationship. Maybe you were betrayed. Yes, this is not to deny the truth of what happened. But you see, when that traumatic event happened, you probably happen to have created a certain belief system around that event. That belief system, or the worldview, or the interpretation, or the meaning that you made out of it, you just happen to have continued to hold on to it until the present day. So the moment you think about it again, you reinterpret and reconstruct the memory, you reconstruct it based off this very, very negative and very, very disempowering or very, very hurtful belief that you have continued to hold on to until the present day. So immediately when you put on that shit-tinted spectacles, that very negative colored, dark colored lens, as Rob Kelly would say, right? Shit-tinted spectacles, when you think about the past traumatic event, of course you're going to create negative emotions right away like that. It is a very clear and important distinction to make because it shows that, again, we do not store bottled up emotions. The past no longer has control over us per se. It is always a result of our thinking, our interpretations, and the way that we believe about it, the way that we think about it, the way that we perceive it, the way that we interpret it, the way that we view it. Therefore, power now lies back in our hands because if this is a certain belief system that you have just continued to maintain, right, which is entirely constructive in its nature, then that means that we can learn to identify it for what it is and learn to gently challenge it, challenge that limiting belief, challenge that unhelpful, disempowering belief, gently challenge it and deconstruct it until it no longer has power over us. And we can also learn to replace it with a more helpful belief. So when people finally overcome their past or get over their past, what essentially happens is they have learned to uninstall and reinstall a new belief. Uninstall disempowering beliefs in relation to it and reinstall a new, more neutral, more empowering belief in relation to their past, and thereby they are now free from their past. So that's what's happening. It is not that the past has happened, it has shaped who you are today, and that you can no longer change it, you can't fix it, you can't, overcome it. That's not the case at all. So I just wanted to emphasize that real quick here because I forgot to mention that in last week's video. Okay, so now going to today's topic on acceptance. What does acceptance, complete acceptance of the current situation mean, right? No matter how difficult or challenging the situation may be for you, no matter how big of an obstacle, no matter how much you may dislike it, right? I want to present to you the idea that we can learn to, first of all, accept it completely. Well, I just heard news that my business partner betrayed me. Well, I just heard news that my business is collapsing. Well, I just heard news that I've been diagnosed with a certain illness. Okay, it is what it is. This is not to say to not take action. And that's misunderstanding or misconception number one. We often think that, what does this mean? Acceptance means to become a pushover, to not take any action to solve the situation. Does this mean to let others walk all over you, use you as their doormat? No, of course not. Does this mean to not give a damn about the world anymore? Of course not. What acceptance means is it helps us to align our perspective and maintain perspective so that we see things for what they are and we develop clarity and wisdom. We want to take action based off and based on clarity, based on wisdom, not based on neurotic reactivity, neurotic behaviors. There's a very clear difference between the two, and they lead to two totally different roads that have very different results. Okay? So, the key is once something challenging happens to you, a challenging situation which may present itself as an obstacle, as a situation, or may present itself as another person that you're dealing with, that you're in conflict with, or whatever the fact. Before you react to your natural tendency of impulsive reactivity, try to observe what goes on in yourself. Okay, I found out this devastating news. Okay, well, here it is, the current situation. I'm sitting here in my room, listening to this devastating news. What are the thoughts that pop up in my mind? What is the narrative or the commentary or the complaining that goes on in my mind? Watch your mind as it tries to make an enemy out of the other person. Watch your mind as it tries to demonize the other person, demonize the situation, or label the obstacle as evil and that it needs to be overcome. Just watch and observe it. Observe what happens in your body, the physiological or the physical effects that these negative emotions have on your body. Does the news, the devastating news, make your heart sink, your stomach churn, your knees go weak, your muscles tense up? Just watch and observe. An interesting thing is, once you completely accept the current situation first, you actually have more possibilities on your hand in how to solve the situation wisely. That's what we want. And oftentimes, most of the situations that we find ourselves in are not immediate in their nature. They are not an immediate threat in their nature. Right? Of course, if you're driving in a car and you're on the highway, you need to respond right away. But most of the situations that we find ourselves in life, well over 95%, I would argue, is not something that is of immediate threat in its nature. In other words, the threat that comes up is a projection of our mind and our thinking and our judgments based on likes and dislikes, based on our labeling, based on the mind making the other person an enemy that we need to eradicate at all costs. Complete acceptance, in other words, means letting go. Letting go of what? Letting go of our unnecessary anger, frustration, hatred, negativity, right? Letting go of and detaching ourselves from the complaining of the mind that wants to make us feel justified in our anger, in our hatred, in our frustration, wants to make us feel justified in labeling the other person or the other situation or the other obstacle as evil. And therefore, we have the moral ground to take action and eradicate that person by all means necessary. The irony is, if you walk down that road, you become what you're fighting against. So isn't that ironic, right? So complete acceptance is pretty much awareness work, self-awareness work. We're developing self-awareness here, right? We're learning to not react instantaneously based on neurotic behaviors or based on extreme polarity of emotions or frustration, anger, hatred, right? And here's something that I want to share that I learned from Eckhart Tolle, who I mention often in my videos, is an interesting thought experiment that we can see for ourselves in how we create suffering for ourselves if we just react right away, react impulsively, and react to our emotions is this. When we pursue a certain goal, we often have an underlying assumption that the future goal, the achievement that we want, is somehow superior and more important than the current present moment that we're in. Now, this is not understood as self-talk. It is not understood as, we're not saying this to ourselves per se, but it is understood as an underlying belief, an underlying feeling, or an underlying assumption that we have about the future. The future goal is more superior to our present place where we have not yet achieved that dream goal. We are still feeling scarce. And therefore, when the mind thinks in that way, it automatically assumes that the present moment and the steps to take to that future goal is inferior to the goal or the achievement that we want. Now, when we live life that way, we will be out of touch with our current situation, the present moment, the current circumstances, or the current experience of our reality. And an interesting thing happens, because the moment you take that assumption, the moment you see an obstacle appear on your path, the moment you are confronted with a negative situation or certain challenge which life will inevitably throw at you, you will immediately feel agitated by it. You will immediately complain about it. You will immediately label it as bad, negative, frustrating. You feel angry and you feel upset by it, and you want to eradicate it at all costs. And you take action immediately from that impulsive and neurotic behavior, from that neurotic assumption, right? So in other words, we no longer have clarity and no longer have perspective. So complete acceptance of your current situation is about developing self-awareness. It is about developing perspective, about developing clarity and wisdom. We want to move and we want to take action from clarity and from wisdom. Now, okay, you may argue that, I sort of see where you're going here, but anger is important. I need to feel angry. I need to feel angry in order to, feel pumped up and feel tensed up in order to protect myself and my family when that asshole is trying to take advantage of us. I need to feel angry. And isn't anger and isn't fear an evolutionary or a biological mechanism to protect ourselves? And I solve my problems through my anger, so what's wrong with that? Certainly you can argue that. But the point is, yes, you may solve your problems that way, but in doing so, it will be a very stressful and very unpleasant process. And you will probably end up causing problems or suffering for yourself and others around you and for other people. But if you come from a place of clarity, you accept it first, and again, as we said, acceptance on the other side of it is just letting go of unnecessary negativity, unnecessary judgment, unnecessary anger, hatred. And we take action from what's remaining. Take action from perspective. You will see that you have so many options at hand. And perhaps some situations don't need action at all. They will resolve themselves. And when you act from that place, you can still solve the problem from a place of caution, you see. If you're in a place or situation where there's a sense of danger involved, you can still act with clarity. You can still act with caution. Proceed with caution. But don't proceed with panic attacks and don't proceed with, negative or overly intense amounts of fear. And that's what clarity will do for us, right? If we are in a situation where, yes, there is a sense of danger involved, you can even argue that. For example, if you're driving your car, right, you want to take caution. Perhaps you're driving on a unknown territory and it's dark at night and you don't know this place very well. And you need to be extra cautious about where you're navigating. Perhaps you're driving in winter conditions and there's ice on the road and it can be dangerous, right? But there's a difference between taking caution and being overly stressed and panicking about it. So complete acceptance of the current situation helps us to see things for what they are, and that's the key, right? So then you may ask next, okay, so what are the practical steps to take here? Because all in all, this is a topic that concerns awareness, that concerns self-awareness, correct? We want to develop self-awareness of our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical sensations. We want to be grounded in awareness of our current situation. So of course, the answer again lies in practice. So I want to propose for you today to practice with the small things in life. Practice with the small things in everyday life. Say you're at a restaurant or you ordered food, takeaway food, perhaps, due to the current coronavirus pandemic, maybe restaurants are still not opening up or not fully functioning yet. If the waiter or waitress, gives you the wrong order or takes longer to process your order, try to accept it first. Accept that your order is wrong first. Accept that your order is taking longer than usual. And observe yourself. Observe the hunger and how it's causing you to feel frustrated and angry. Just watch yourself. Eventually, perhaps you can let go of any anger and frustration. And perhaps you may realize that, okay, I can wait for 15 minutes longer. Or if you do need to take action, you can take action from a much more calm, confident, and much more wiser position. Instead of being angry with the waiter or the waitress who is still also doing his or her job, who's also tired and working hard, you can speak to them nicely. If you don't, practice this self-awareness, maybe you'll instead react right away, yell at the waiter, yell at the waitress, speak rudely to them, speak meanly to her, right? So there's a big and clear difference here, right? Observe yourself first. Maybe if you're going to get a service at a certain company and the line and the queue is very long, right? Accept the current situation first, right? Take in your senses as you can see them, right? Observe yourself, your thoughts. This queue is so long, this queue is so annoying, this company sucks, this service provider, I'm never going to use them again. Observe your thoughts, the complaining that happens in your mind, and accept the situation first. Accept the current situation that you're in, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how much you may dislike it. Accept it first and gain clarity on it. Do you need to take any specific action? Well, now that I think about it, maybe I can just wait for a bit longer. It's just 2 more persons ahead of my queue anyways. Or maybe if it's so long, can I perhaps come back on another day? Or do I go to another service provider? And take action based on that. We have no need for emotional reactivity. So the key is to practice with the small things. You're stuck in traffic as you're driving. Accept it. And just try to observe yourself as you're stuck in traffic feeling frustrated. And try to take in the senses, perhaps look outside, look in the sky, and try to appreciate something that you can appreciate in the present moment. And you will quickly regain calmness. You will quickly regain perspective. You will quickly regain clarity, right? What are other examples? Perhaps somebody accuses you of something that you didn't do. Perhaps your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or your friend or family member says something mean to you that you don't like, right? Perhaps they call you a name. Perhaps they call you, they say that you're lazy. Accept it first. Observe yourself, Okay, I can see myself disliking what I'm hearing. I can see myself getting boiled up inside, but I don't need to react yet. Okay, try to practice. It starts with the small things in everyday life, right? Perhaps business is not going as well as you had hoped. Okay, accept it first. Learn to see it for what it is. Well, sales are going down, but I'm still okay. I've still got food on the table. I've still got a roof over my head. I can appreciate that. I can be grateful for that. And with calmness and with clarity, I can think more clearly about what actions I need to take. If the business is doomed to fail, well, how do I mitigate the risk? How do I solve the financial problems that will come with this bankruptcy, right? Maintain perspective and take action as needed and nothing more. And I think that's the key that I want to share in today's video, is we want to develop clarity in all situations and challenges that we find ourselves in life, because life will throw challenges at us all the time. Well, not all the time, but we can't escape it. There will always be challenges in life. And the example I want to give you today is, for myself, I have to practice what I preach. I'm trying to learn this too, right? Filming this video today has particularly been quite difficult because for some reason there's just so much activity going on around this area, and the noise is very loud and it gets into the microphone and it ruins the recording. So I have to do a few takes. And again, I can see myself getting frustrated. I can see myself feeling, how many more takes do I have to do here? I just observe myself. I feel the frustration. I just sit here. I just take a break, just stand there, just appreciate the nice, cool air conditioning that I'm in. I still feel fortunate for that. And eventually the frustration goes away. And when the frustration goes away, guess what? I can restart a new take and hopefully land this clip. So it all begins with practice with everything in our life. We want to navigate through life, through each and every day, removed from any judgments based on likes or dislikes. Because all our problems, most of our problems are fundamentally created in here, in our mind, through our judgments based on likes or dislikes, based on attachment and clinginess. But once we learn to accept the current situation for what it is, right, we actually also learn to let go of unnecessary, unhelpful habits, unhelpful thinking styles, unhelpful emotions, negativity, anger, frustration. So I hope this video was valuable for you, and I encourage you to practice along with me, because this is a lifelong journey. It is lifelong practice, and we have to keep doing it consistently, and you will see right away in your life that is reflected by the new ways in which you handle difficult challenges. You will handle them in a much more calm manner, in a much more confident manner, free from emotional reactivity. And that's what we want. We want clarity. Okay, good luck to you. Thanks for staying tuned. I will see you next time. สวัสดีครับ